The pandemic of COVID-19 has revealed to us gross inequities in the world. We know that Black and brown bodies have been most harmed by COVID-19 in the United States. We know that social inequity has allowed this pandemic, this virus, to magnify the fact that Black and brown bodies are being most harmed by what's going on in society. And that pandemic has taught us a lot, but I want to make an argument about the pandemic that pandemic sat within, that we did not look at because we were only looking at 2020 vision. Our work as artists and art educators, and not a peripheral global vision. And the peripheral and global vision allowed us to see that yes, COVID-19 was a pandemic that we've all had to respond to, and we're responding to right now by having this talk online. But there's a larger pandemic that sat within, and that pandemic was state-sanctioned violence, inequity, and racism. And they came together to create this thing, and they've been collectively implanted into our psyche and subconscious, and we've not addressed that. I would make the argument that we were all suffering from the virus of state-sanctioned violence and racism, even as this health pandemic, global health pandemic emerged. And what the global health pandemic was showing us was that we were sitting within this larger thing. So let's deconstruct this larger thing. Dr. Emdin, we're art educators. We don't engage in state-sanctioned violence as a function of what we do. In fact, we're the ones who make sure that young folks, have a way of artistic expression. But no, I want us to understand that the state-sanctioned violence is something that we all have collectively. We all breathe it in like air. And when we see it, we identify it when it gets exhibited by folks who are outside of us, because we think of ourselves as the good folks with the good vision. We could all sit and say, oh my gosh, he may be right. Maybe there is state-sanctioned violence and racism. Black Lives Matter is emerging because of that. Wait, well, I can sit in my living room or my art studio or my classroom, and I could watch the video of George Floyd getting assassinated and say, oh my gosh, that is state-sanctioned violence. That is problematic. That is racism. And we sit at the perch of our spaces of comfort, and we look at other folks who are beyond us because we think we have 20/20 vision and we can identify that they are problematic. How could he have choked the life from that man? How could he have placed a foot on someone's neck as they called for their mother? And you can tell in the way he called for his mother that he was seeing his life ending as it was going on. And we can all collectively say, oh my gosh, that is sick, that is problematic, we cannot do that. And I want us to understand that that was a symptomatic state-sanctioned, that was a symptomatic virus of state-sanctioned violence and racism. And we were all sitting asymptomatic, identifying the symptomatic version and saying how problematic it was. And I want us all to recognize that ourselves, particularly ourselves as educators, are asymptomatic for that same virus. How? Because we don't put knees on necks of human beings and choke life from them, but we put metaphorical knees on necks of young folks and choke out the artist, the creative. We choke out the soul, the spirit, the sense of self, the sense of worth from young people. If our pedagogies are robbing Black and brown babies in particular of the right to live, the right to love, the right to be full, the right to see themselves as more than what society has told themselves as, I would argue that you are just as dangerous as a person who chokes physical life from someone when you choke soul life and spiritual life from young folks. And sometimes your 20/20 vision of being the best artist and the best educator robs you of the opportunity to see the fact that there may be something that is in my psyche, that's in my soul, that's in my spirit as educator, my elitism as an educator, that is making me look at young folks in a way where they're not fully human, and because of that, robbing them of life. So now let's expand out this vision. Let's look at it in a more robust way, and let's look at how art becomes the anchor. It becomes a mechanism through which we can expand out our worldview and then transform our pedagogy. Expand your vision. 2020 and just in front of you is not enough. We must look at the world around us and have the world around us inform what we do. If Black Lives Matter protests are occurring in the world beyond the classroom, then it must be central in your pedagogy as well. Don't just see 2020, see robustly, see 360. In addition to the seeing, ensure that you put on the PPE, the preservation of your identity, the preservation of who you are in the world by understanding the rights of the body. the right to be here, the right to feel, the right to act, the right to love, the right to speak, the right to see, the right to know, and ensure that you claim that for yourself, and then ensure that you create spaces for that to be there for young people. And then finally, in the words of Anais Nin, and the day came when the risk to remain in the bud was more painful than the pain of staying in the bud was more painful than the risk that took to blossom. We need to be in an era of blossoming, of reimagining, of re-seeing, of shaking off fear, shaking off guilt and shame and grief and lies and illusion and attachment, and seeing schools anew. It is only then that we can cure from the disease and virus of state-sanctioned violence and racism. It's only then that we can reimagine teaching and learning. It is only then that we can become artists and see young folks as artists as well. Thank you.